many 7-year cycles she's been through. There's a lot of knowledge inside this woman. I'm certain of it. And I'm pleased to introduce you. And I'm excited to find out you're also in Sacramento. So I'll see you there.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Kevin, for finding me and having me come here, because I'm sure I'm going to be the only entomologist presently and ever that you're going to hear speak. But you all eat. And you know what? Business is business, as you find out, entomologist or not. So why should you care? Because our soils are very seriously degraded. 15% of all greenhouse gas emissions come from agriculture and food production. And despite the fact that $60 billion worth of synthetic chemical pesticides are used today, we still have 300 billion in crop damage and loss. So this is just an area that is ripe for innovation. And this is the most exciting time to be an ag tech, ag bio entrepreneur, because of these big problems to solve. We can't continue to produce food the way we have in the past. I tapped into what's called the microbiome, but for agriculture, way before it was trendy. Now it's very trendy. You must have heard about the fact that you eat yogurt to affect your microbiome, and there's a brain-gut microbiome connection on many health aspects. Same with the soil and plant microbiome. There is an amazing ecosystem of microbes and plants signaling each other and microbes signaling another microbe, and now we're unraveling that today with science, and there's many startups, but I did this way before it was trendy, started looking at microbes. How come I did that? Well, I grew up on a little mini farm, beautiful place in Southern Connecticut on 40 acres. And my parents were very much into gardening and growing things. And we had this 2-acre bass fishing and swimming pond I spent every minute with. But the most important story is about the dogwood tree, which is now quite large. That's a recent picture. When it was little, there are these gypsy moths, now called, renamed politically correct way, spongy moth. And these spongy moths would devastate the eastern forests, and they would just denude the forest. And I would walk out into the forest, and the insect, it's called frass, the technical term, which is insect poop, would drop on my head. It was like raining. So I was like, I'm going to figure out how to control these things. Well, my dad wanted to control them on this dogwood tree because he thought it was going to kill it. So he went to the store and got a chemical pesticide, sprayed it. And then my mother was freaking out because it killed all the bees, lady beetles, and all the good stuff. And she said, you will never use that again. So he went back to the store and found a jug of BT, which is a microbe, a bacteria that when the insects feed on it, it disrupts their gut and they die. Well, I asked him, Dad, okay, how is it? And he says, well, it's good for the environment. Your mother likes it, makes her happy, but I don't know if it works. That's the story of my career. So I've been always going uphill trying to prove that these natural products can work as well as chemicals. So synthetic chemicals have many, many challenges. So bugs have developed resistance to them. There's global bans on products. Europe has eliminated most major classes of chemical pesticides from the market. California has eliminated many of them, major classes, more so than other states. And it's a very slow growth market. It's just pretty flat, but it costs $300 million in 11 to 12 years to develop a new product. So big problems in this industry. But biologicals, what are they? They are natural substances or microorganisms that can control a pest or increase crop growth. And there's different categories, I don't need to get into it, but they're all growing much faster than the chemical pesticide market and are now getting into some decent sized markets in the multi-billion-dollar category. And so why are they growing so quickly? Well, if they didn't work for the farmer and give them an ROI, a better ROI, they wouldn't be used, okay? Farmers are not, they have to grow things for a living. And so they work. They also improve soil health. So we have so many degraded soils now in the US, as I said, 50% of our topsoil. Now you can apply biological products and you can improve your soil health. And my company was the first, Marrone Bio, my third company, was the first one to ever do a full life cycle analysis on our biological products compared to synthetic chemicals. And we can show we reduce greenhouse gas emissions compared to the chemical counterparts by 85 to 90%. So that's huge. That's huge. They're safe to honeybees. They don't cause resistance because they're very complex in the way they work. And we don't leave any chemical residues. So you can spray right up to harvest and export and go, and you can spray in the morning and harvest or prune in the afternoon. And they take a lot less capital, although still several $1 million, but it takes a lot less capital than chemicals to develop. So the big companies, of course, have recognized this, and they're all jumping in, and including on July 12th, I sold my third company to a large Argentinian company called Bioseries Crop Solutions. And my second company was bought by Bayer Crop Science for almost 500 million. You hear that gory story, but they're all jumping in, the big guys, because they realize this is the future and they need to get better growth than what their chemicals will do. They're also, by the way, jumping into digital ag, and the digital farm is a reality, and the farm has gone high tech, and every single one of these companies, big companies, has got a digital play. Look at the financings. Wow. Okay. So the financings in ag and food tech is really exploding. It's off a little bit this year, but not that much. There's still a lot of money going into this. And if you look at the sectors, the big blue one is e-grocer. That's getting softer now, but and then a bunch of tech ones and marketplaces and farm management software and so forth. And then our ag biotech, the biological world, is still a significant amount of capital going in. So why natural products? Okay, why? Well, more than 50% of your human drugs are derived from natural sources, but only 15% of pesticides. So very early, way ahead of my time, I recognized this, and so went out hunting for these types of things, plants and microbes that could be turned into products for farmers. Where do you go? Well, I've gone all over, gone to the rainforest, gone onto beaches, hot springs, wherever. So you can find these all over the place. Now we have better tools, scientific tools, to be able to hone in better. But over time, I had a very good search image of where to find these successfully. And it's in a very complex process, which I don't need to belabor. We take them from discovery all the way through manufacturing and sales and marketing. And since I was doing something differently than others, and my goal was to create a company that had solved the full range of customer needs. So not just one product, because the farmers and the distributors who sell to the farmers said, if you're just going to be a little company with one product, we don't want to do it. We don't want to take your product, but if you can develop a full range of products that are innovative, we'll do business with you. So indeed, I thought I was going to develop as many products as I could, as quickly as I could. So hired a bunch of scientists from UC Davis, trained them how to do this process, and then we did it over and again and again and again until we perfected it. And then we launched more products than anybody has ever done in the industry. Prior to Marrone Bio, I started AgriQuest way back when. And our first product, and our most successful product, was found from a peach orchard in Fresno County, California, where the grower reported he didn't have a lot of brown rot on the peaches. So we took a soil sample from under the tree, brought it back to the lab, and the scientists found this bacteria, which is on the plate, and it warded off all the other fungus on the plate. So it was very interesting. We grew it in little flasks, and my friends at Gallo Vineyards allowed us on their very high-end, the best ranch, to spray a flask onto the grapes. And that famous picture in our industry, it's very famous now, is the Serenade sprayed and unsprayed grapes. You can see the big difference in powdery mildew versus sprayed and unsprayed. And this is called Serenade. We did a market research study, focus group with the growers and distributors about the names, and it was music in the symphony of pest management. They loved it. They loved it. I didn't think so because most of the names of pesticides are ammo, warrior, these all males names, but they loved it. They did. So how did we create adoption of this product? I paid the salesperson, because nobody had heard of this product like this before. It's all chemicals. So we paid my salesperson $50 a demo to provide product to a farmer for free to try it on their vineyard. And grapes was our first product, first market. And so we made $5,000, which was great. And those growers became very, very loyal customers. Now, when I started my Marrone Bio, I'm trying to displace my old product with a new one. That was an interesting challenge. The company was sold to Bayer Crop Science, And the scientists who were with me are now at Bayer, and they continue to tweak this microbe and make new versions. They're on at least 5.0, and their newest one is called Minuet. And we were the first. I flew to Bentonville, Arkansas, and asked Walmart if they would put this product into the stores. And they said, sure. And they helped me develop it. They came up with the colors, the name. I went to Lowe's and Home Depot, and they said, no, our customers like our chemicals. We don't want anything to do with you. Not a month after we were launching with Walmart in all 2,300 stores, the first organically, these are organic, can be used for organic farming and gardening, the first organically listed product in the stores, an environmental group sued Home Depot and Lowe's because they had too many chemicals in the stores. And Walmart was like, ha, ha, I told you. So for, Walmart, for all their criticism, was way ahead. The buyer was way ahead of everybody else. So now this product is a $100 million product. It's the most successful breakout product of its category. So very proud of that. Now at Marrone Bio, I won't belabor it is, but I just want to touch on where we found these products. So the whole suite of products. And Regalia is an extract of giant knotweed. Zequinox, which I've licensed into my new company, my fourth company, because they don't want to do water products, is a bacteria that kills invasive mussels in water. Stargus was found from a rice field in Northern California. Grandiva was found under a hemlock tree. Venerate and Majesty, the same, different brands for the same product, was found in the Rinpoche temple in Japan. And Haven is an extract of coconut oil. So just very interesting where we find all these things around the planet. Now, one of the things I got huge criticism for when I first started in this business was applying the lean startup model. Now, all you in tech, you understand what this is. You get your MVP out with customers, you get feedback from customers, and then you keep improving. This was unheard of in agriculture because the big chemical companies would spend $300 million up front because of the fact that you had to prove that their chemicals weren't going to harm anybody. It took them 10 to 12 years to develop a product. So by the time they launched a product, they had thousands of field trials and demonstrations and such with the customer. And they launched big to reach 200, 300 million in 3 years, okay? Well, that's not a model for a startup. We don't have $300 million. We have a few million to develop these products. So I went to my customers and said, early adopter customers, and said, try this out. What do you think? So the customers would give us feedback on the product, the grower, early adopter growers, almond grower, grape grower, and then tell us what they liked or didn't like about the product. And they find all these new things about the product that went back through R&D to come up with version 2.0 and so forth. And now this is the standard model for a startup in our industry. And you hear all the ag tech accelerators and everybody talking about this. But I got so much criticism for that. It seemed obvious to me. But I kept saying, well, wait a minute. Don't you have different versions of your phone? And I said, why can't you have different versions? Well, you get to market too soon. You might harm something. Well, I said, my products are not harmful and the customers want them. Why shouldn't I be selling them? And so some of the reasons why we effectively scaled both AgriQuest and Marrone Bio, the first one, by the way, was Entotech. It was I was hired by Novo Nordisk to start up a company in Davis, California. And they sold us after 5 years to our largest competitor. But that was basically, they gave me the money. So I'm not talking really about that one. So we had effective, innovative products, and the customers always said they wanted innovative products, something different. And of course, they had to provide a grower a return on investment, a diversified portfolio. I loved it when I went down to visit a Florida grower, and he said, well, Pam, okay, I'm taking care of my scab and my brown rot on my citrus, but I need something for mites because I've burned out my chemicals. I've overused them. They don't work anymore. What do you got for mites? Then I realized that you needed a full range of things to serve the farm. Boy, finding a sales team is really tough in any business, but oh my God, it was definitely not good to hire a Syngenta salesperson or a Bayer salesperson because their goal was to take a little market share from each other, not to try to displace a chemical with a new product from an unknown company. So we had to find people who truly believed in biologicals and were going to be hunters out there. That still is not an easy task. That's what the startups have the most problem. But we had to provide more education to the customer because these products, when you spray them on, like a chemical, they drop, the bug might drop dead in 24, 48 hours. That's not how our products work. They might stop feeding and the bugs might hang out there not doing any damage, but then they might die after 10 days. So that's an education process, but we were successfully able to cross that. How did we get adoption? The distributors didn't do any demand creation. They're just pretty much order takers. So we had to do demos at the grower level and then pull through. So the more I incentivized the sales team, the more demos they did, the more money they got and the more adoption we got. But at the same time, we did have to provide high profitability for the channel partners. And even though we were small business to our largest distributor customer, they said we were the most profitable, which was why they kept selling our products. And then right now, and generally international expansion, US is the most mature market. And now it's growing very fast. Brazil has become and eclipsed the US as the biggest market for these types of products now, biological products. So the key was always showing the value to the grower, the return on investment. So we always got the data to show how many more crates of fruit or how many more ears of corn and the weight of the corn and so forth, and the quality of potatoes, the bigger the potatoes, and measured all of that and calculated the return on investment to growers. And that's what got them motivated. Now, if you go out to Watsonville, you go to Monterey County here in California, I can stand in a field and I can look over there and there's an organic strawberry field. And I can go over here and I can find one where they spray chemicals early, but they stop spraying late so they don't leave any chemical residues. So they'll be able to export to Europe and Japan, who don't like those chemical residues. And then over here, I can look and see a full conventional field where they, by the way, conventional strawberries, they spray every 5 days with a cocktail of nasty chemicals. So I would suggest eating organic for strawberries. And so, so you can see all 3 production systems just looking out there. And so we designed our products to be able to fit to all of those production systems. So now let's talk about the money. Okay, well, here's an entomologist who learned that she was good at raising money, which was an interesting skill to have. So at AgriQuest, we did a founding round of our own money, and then friends and family, and then did a round of financing every single year. Why? Because back then, I'm old, so back then, there weren't any ag tech, ag bio funds. Now there's lots of money going into climate tech and ag tech, but back then we had to find life science funds or clean tech funds and we were typically the first ag investment in their portfolios. And so I did around every year, beautiful uptick in valuation, and then filed for the IPO on August 3rd, 2001. Well, September, you know what happened. September 11th came. I was flying to the World Trade Center and the World Financial Center because the lawyers for our deal were in the South Tower. Merrill Lynch, who was our banker, was right across the street. My hotel was destroyed in the terrorist attack. So I didn't get there, obviously, since I was flying on September 12th to kick off the roadshow. And I just felt so bad that I didn't want to focus on the fact that my life was changed and I wasn't going to be able to raise this money because so many people had died. I just felt so selfish thinking about the IPO. So I tried to focus on something else, and I went to visit all of my customers around the globe. And that really was therapy for me because then I could really get pumped up that they really like these products. Where was I going to find money? We're not profitable yet. And so where are we going to find money? Well, unfortunately, one of our shareholders offered some very draconian terms for the next rounds of financing. And we went from 30 million shares to 1 billion shares because I was forced by the board to take a full ratchet anti-dilution and 2.5 liquidation preference. So, at the end of the day, that was really painful, but the company survived. Serenade is one of the biggest products of the sector. So, at the end of the day, the company survived, the products are out there, but it was very, very, very painful. So I left and then started Marrone Bio, and then the company was sold later for almost 500 million. And those who came in in Series G through K made 10x on their money, and most of the early investors got 1x, got their money back. So it's now I have founders who don't understand some of these terms like that anti-dilution preferences, full ratchet anti-dilution and liquidation preferences. So they'll get term sheets and I'll say, no, did you actually read these and understand what they mean? So avoid what I did. So resilient entrepreneur I am. I started up again and said, I'll do it even bigger and better. Okay. So started off with, again, our money, friends and family money, and professor at UC Davis and ex HP person who had a Harvard MBA, which I thought was necessary in raising money because they looked at my PhD and said, oh, chief science officer. I go, wait a minute. I haven't been in the lab since 1985. I'm not sure I could be a chief science officer, but because of the PhD, I was always pigeonholed that way. So we did a founding round and then did a convertible note that went into Series A and raised 4 million Series A, and then raised another 65 million and convert in both equity and pre-IPO mezzanine debt. Company started as a name, Marrone Organic Innovations, but that was too limiting because our products work for all farmers, not just all organic farmers. Changed it to Marrone Bio Innovations. I didn't want to name the name after myself, but everyone lobbied me to do so because they said I was a brand, so should push, it's a good brand, put it in there. But actually, it's really named after my dad. He died the week I was starting up the company. And if any of you from Europe, Marrone, yes, well, it's in Italian, it's Marrone, but we call it Marrone, is chestnut in Italian. What are those little, that little logo? Those are chestnuts. And everyone really liked it because, especially my husband, who said, oh, that means you've got balls, you've got cojones. So double entendre here. Yeah, so that was pretty funny. And what's nice is that I wanted, when the company was sold to Bioceres, I wanted them to retire the name. So they did. And they called the subsidiary of Marrone Bio ProFarm Group, but they kept the chestnuts. I thought that was so touching. So, how did we get to the IPO? Well, we didn't have the SPAC option as we do today. So we had to do the old fashioned real IPOs. And we had Goldman Sachs, who didn't end up doing the deal. It was Jefferies who ended up doing the deal. But Goldman Sachs back in 2011 gave us a list of milestones we had to achieve in order for them to take us public. So we had our management team. I heard this morning, oh, don't use your management team for this. But we actually used our management team for planning out every single quarter what we had to do to get to that IPO and tick down those milestones. Some of the milestones were, two more products through the EPA, through the Environmental Protection Agency, get a big deal with a big agri-chemical company, so it's validating your technology and so on. And so we planned out what we want to be number one independent company in this industry. What does it mean? And so here's the things. I still kept the flip charts here. And we achieved everything on this list, except didn't achieve the 100 million revenues. We achieved 50, but not 100 million. So that will come though. And the roadshow, of course, was thrilling. It really, really was one of the most exciting parts of my career, and obviously very intense, and with so many meetings and everything. And but it wasn't easy. I was telling last night that our accounting firm was for some reason not approving the final numbers that we needed for the deal. And on the day we were going to price, they still, they were launch, or they still hadn't done it. So that was some screaming on the phone. And then my CFO and head of sales, who were on the roadshow with me, got into a fist fight on the second day. On the second day. And the CFO had a big book with all the statistics in it of all the numbers, and he would flip through the book, and of course the fund managers would just like roll their eyes and just get out of here. And so I sent back to the headquarters and said to the FP&A person, I said, please just get me a one-page cheat sheet that he can use because it looks bad that the CEO is answering all the financial questions. Maybe it's good and bad, but that was not good. So there were some very challenging internal dynamics on it. We got through it, and then retired that CFO, and then got a new CFO who is my co-founder in my fourth venture now, Jim Boyd. So my mom and her sister came to the bell ringing. That was one of the most exciting times. Loved it. But what happened then? Okay, so this is a very gory chart. So what happened is, okay, so we're going along, the lockup expires. Those investors, VCs who sold right after the lockup made 10x their money. They did well, but those who stayed in, oh boy, like me, who couldn't tell, was not able to sell a single share until after 15 years. My head of sales, who I just promoted, silly me, to COO, resigned abruptly. We're like, whoa, all the investors loved him. And so this was a big deal. We announced it and the stock dropped 50%. And then a customer made us aware that their vice president had done a side deal with him that they didn't report to the accountants. Oh my God, okay. This is really bad if you're a public company. So what they had done together, the customer and him, was to allow inventory protection, which means there's right of return on the product. Well, if you do that, you can't recognize that revenue, but we had recognized that revenue. So we went to the board, myself and the CFO, we were sick. We went to the board and we said, this is what's happened. Of course, that launched an investigation, independent investigation. We spent $17 million in accounting and legal fees and a $2.5 million SEC fine to restate $6 million worth of revenue. Yeah. And so the company went from $10 a share down to 59 cents. And I wept on the day when I saw all the funds just dumping the shares. So during that time, around the accounting investigation, I call it the Lord of the Flies time. Oh my God, the company was so dysfunctional. It was just everyone for themselves. And then we sort of graduated into the Game of Thrones era. Who's going to be the king and queen? And it was really, really difficult. I was sidelined and sidetracked because they even though I was completely innocent, the board wanted to prove that I was. And so once I was exonerated, there were some machinations within the board, but they had handed me the keys back and said, you and Jim, our CFO, okay, do what either we get rid of you or we let you run the company. So we'll let you run the company. So, well, I mean, I was still CEO in name. Yeah, but that was, it was a long time. It was, so we announced the investigation in 2014 and our accountant didn't get the numbers done until we were just before delisting. They finally, the night before we were going to be delisted, got the numbers after I was begging them. So that was 2 years, 2 full years. Yeah. So interestingly, even though the company was hobbled, our customers still kept buying product and we still had positive sales growth. It wasn't as high as we wanted, but we still had 9-10% growth. So that said something. Well, once Jim and I restructured the company, we had to lay off 40% of the company, but our largest shareholder, bless his heart, lent us $40 million and later converted to equity at a premium to the stock price. So he really believed in what we were doing. So he saved us. And we started executing on the business. I'll show you some of those numbers. But anyway, the former COO was arrested. He is in jail. But like you heard this morning, it's really hard once you're low price like that. It's hard to get new funds to invest in you. And so our stock just hung out really low. And then I did recap the company, did a PIPE, and converted 45 million of debt that we had taken on, 45 of 52 million in debt that we had taken on at a premium. So the stock rallied and then just went down again. And after a couple of years, I said, okay, I'm done. And Jim also retired shortly after me. Let's get a new CEO, see if that'll save things. So I retired in August 2020. And then it was sold in July 12th of this year for $236 million for an all stock deal. Yay, all my options and stock and shareholder stock rolls over. When we did the deal on July 12th, our stock was 79 cents, theirs was 9.89, and now theirs is close to 14. So yay, that was really, really good. So we had, after we restructured the company, we took the company from 0 gross margin to nearly, it's over 60% now. And we had growth that was generally double or quadruple what is standard for the industry, and a compounded annual growth rate of more than 30%, which is very high in our industry. So we were very proud of what we did after restructuring. And what was the key? Well, I'll talk about that in a minute, but it was all about the people and the people who remained with the company. But it's always true. Raise money when you don't need it. It always takes longer than you think. You always need to take more money than you think you need. And move fast when a window is open, because they open and close. Bad things happen. War in Ukraine, Great Recession, terrorist attacks. I mean, you never know what is going to happen. And a deal is not done until money is in the bank. Kleiner Perkins was going to put $20 million into this company. 1 week before to closing, they pulled out. Okay, so you just never know. And then I had to scramble and find a replacement. That was challenging. But because of the AcroQuest situation, I said I was never going to be up against a wall like I was, and generally kept that true, that I always generally was raising money when I had money, and that makes it a lot better, obviously, the next time around. And always now I advise all the entrepreneurs is, walk away. And you heard this morning. Walk away from those that you just think aren't going to fit you. Just, money is not all money is the same money. So we heard about this morning about certainly if you're building something no one wants, then obviously you have to pivot. But number 2 of reasons for startups failing is hiring poorly. And boy, did I make a big mistake in hiring that head of sales who became our COO. But you know what? He was interviewed by the board. I had him interviewed by very many different people. And maybe I should have seen something. There were some signs there. I look back. But the biggest mistakes I've always made has been in hiring. And so I found that I'm off raising money and running the company, and we're hiring a lot of people. And we hired for skills rather than for culture. And then after this incident, we switched it and hired for culture. And of course, you want somebody who has skills, but you can train for skills, but not for culture fit or culture add. So we changed how we hired, and the team would say, "Oh, Pam, you don't even want to see this candidate because he's not going to fit." And that was great. And during the investigation restatement, there was so much lack of alignment and chaos. Having that aligned leadership team and board was really one of the most critical success factors. So once we were aligned, all of the employees, and we had 1/3 of our employees leave to our competitors. And actually, I thought that was really horrible. But then looking back on it, the ones who stayed really believed in what we were doing. And most of them are still with the company. So we got into these TED Talks with Seth Godin at the time, because we realized that those who believe in biologicals as alternatives to toxic products, you really had to believe in it. All the employees that didn't believe in it just never did well. So we showed a lot of TED Talks about that you have to develop a movement and have tribes that believe in this movement. And now we're happy to say that the biological movement is now becoming mainstream. But at the time, we had to create our tribes. And we became very value driven, because again, we didn't want to hire people who didn't fit the values. So that all of the employees came up with these values of how they wanted the company, the values and fundamental values of the company. And every quarter we had an employee meeting, and they would write down on a piece of paper which values we're doing well at, which we're not doing well at. And this is really funny, because fun came up as the one we were doing the poorest at. And I was like, oh, okay, so we're not having enough fun. So I said, okay, well, you set up an employee committee to have fun. And they go, no, you just plan events. I said, no, I'm not gonna plan events for you. So now to this day, there's a very active employee committee that does all these fantastic events, fun things for the company. So I'm glad we solved that one. But it was really a great exercise to be able to hone in the values that we weren't doing well at and which ones we were doing really well at. When I started the company, because of my AgriQuest experience, I wrote down all the things I thought were the attributes of the ideal culture. So this was written December 2005, and I started the company April 2006. I achieved all of these but one, and I'm not going to tell you which one because I think this one's going to be live stream, right? I don't want to offend somebody, but there's one on there. You might be able to guess which one it is, which I didn't achieve, but all the rest I'm really proud of. I'm really proud of the culture that we developed at Marrone Bio, because when you're an entrepreneur, it's not just about starting up to do another product or, it's about, you see this ideal of a company culture that you want to create. And then new people come in, investors come in, you have a board, and they change and move the company into a way that maybe not your ideal. So you have to do it again. So each time you continue to get to that ideal. And I came pretty close. But I had to take a number of classes as part of the SEC mitigation to the fraud. So one of them was really, really valuable. It was a professor who taught cultural drift. So in any organization, you have top engineers, very charismatic, influential engineers, or head of R&D, or a salesperson who is so charismatic that other employees follow them. And then what do? They create pockets of influence around them. And they can be different in the way they want the company to run or the strategy than you. And you're off raising money, you're off talking to investors or talking to customers. And so you're not paying attention to everything. You expect you have a team that's taking care of things. But cultural drift is a real thing. I found out from this class, and I saw it firsthand in my company of how that can happen. So one of the things that I didn't realize as a founder and CEO is that you have to spend a lot of time on preventing this cultural drift. In fact, I think it's probably the number one thing you have to do, actually. And so I now, all the companies I advise, I have like 6 women first-time founders. That's one of the things they're very attuned to now. So also getting employees in the door, and we started changing the things we asked, and then how did they react in bad times, not just the good times? What is your biggest challenge? What's your biggest disappointment? What are you most proud of? What kind of people bug you? How do you deal with conflict? Who is your best supervisor and why? So, was there ever a situation where someone asked you to do something that you didn't like that was ethically, borderline? What did you do? And so these are the kinds of things that we asked, and we're able to hire much better than we did in the past. But I always got snookered by those salesy communicators. Those really, we have a lot of them in politics today too. My CFO, bless his heart, Jim Boyd, who's now doing this 4th startup with me, is a Wisconsin farm boy. And the board didn't like him because they didn't see him sidling up in a bar to a Wall Street analyst, but he's salt of the earth, and he got me through that investigation and restatement because he had been through one of those before. He actually came from the semiconductor industry in Silicon Valley, and so he's turned out to be, even though he wasn't showy, he turned out to be really, really, really valuable. So that was a good lesson. One thing I always did was have backups to backups. If my first fundraising plan didn't work, I had another fundraising plan and another fundraising plan. And it's interesting how many founders I talked to today who don't have their backup plans, and they go all for broke on one. And I said, boy, that's risky. So always, and we heard today, fail fast. Yes. In any industry, in ours included, is getting your MVP and quickly finding it's going to work works in my industry as well. So I think in any industry, that's really a good lesson. So I'm excited that the products that I've developed and are growing and around the globe are doing all those things and addressing the challenges we have today. And so why in the world would I do a 4th startup? Well, there's a really big problem with invasive species. These are animals and plants that are brought in through transportation, human movement, and they're going in a place where they don't belong, and then they wreak havoc because they don't have any natural enemies. So we have licensed a product in development from a natural microbe that produces a natural compound that kills invasive carp. And we also licensed from my old company a bacteria that kills invasive mussels. So we have two products to start with, and we're gonna go after big problems in forestry and water, and also probably eventually agriculture. So we're very excited about continuing on having a positive impact on the planet and attacking very big problems. So with that, I will end and take any questions.
On the notion of like taking care of the planet, I think there's Elon Musk and a couple of other people are saying the biggest challenge in the world is population collapse.
That I don't know what he's talking about. No, I've not heard that. I mean, in our world in agriculture, we're still planning that population is going to go to 8 or 9 billion from 6 or 7 billion today. And how are we going to feed those people? Yeah.
What's your favorite bug?
What's my favorite bug? That's a good. Now bees are not. I would have to say a milkweed beetle. It's a cute little thing, and when you pick it up, it squeaks. Anyway. Yeah.
Yes, in your latest startup, if I heard you correctly, you're licensing the tech from the
my previous company. Yeah.
Now, how does that impact your capital raising and valuation of the company if it's not owned wholly by that company?
Yeah, so we have an exclusive license on both products. We have an exclusive license. So even though they own the IP, we have exclusive license. So that's pretty much the same. Yeah. Question.
You're talking about your COO and your CFO getting in a fight.
Yeah.
So in your Draymond Green, Jordan Poole situation, why this happened? What happened?
So we didn't do well on the first day in Boston on the IPO because on the roadshow because there was too much prevarication in the answers. So there was not having quick answers. So the COO blamed the CFO and pinned him up against the wall and said, "You got to do better, buddy. You're gonna ruin this thing." And so they worked it out, and things went better the second day.
So there weren't any punches thrown, just a little pushing.
Well, no, it was. I mean, he literally pinned him up like this against the wall. Yeah.
That was the guy who got
Correct. Correct. No, I had other situations where the guys in my management team, different people got into fights. It was interesting. Yeah. Not the first time. Yeah. Question in the back.
So I'm kind of curious about this process about finding bugs. You have that slide and stuff. We found this one at Japanese temple.
Yeah.
Like, how do you just be like, today I should go to a Japanese temple?
Well, some of it was random because we would send out a collecting kit. We have a government permit to collect and would give it to employees when they would go on vacation so that one was collected by one of our Japanese employees when she was back home. But areas of high biodiversity are really important. So we're losing our biodiversity. So there's a huge, massive decline in animals and plants and insects. And so this is very serious because areas of high biodiversity are where we find the most unique things. So truly the rainforest is the best place to look. And also an organic farm, because organic farmers can't use synthetic chemicals, they have a higher diversity of microbes in their soil. It's a really good place to look. So over time, we would, now you have AI and machine learning to do this, but back then we didn't. We would do it manually, look at the patterns of where all of our many tens of thousands of microbes were isolated from, and then find the patterns and go back to those locations and be able to see that an insecticide was found from this habitat and a fungicide was found from this habitat. Yeah, now it's all high tech, as I said, machine learning and AI and all to do this discovery process. Yeah.
So is the theory the same for all the different products that basically the insect ingests this and it changes the gut to the point where they either die, can't reproduce, or something like that?
Not all of them work in the same way. In fact, all of our products have a different way of working. So for example, the one we found from the Buddhist temple, you spray it on the bug and it affects their what's called the cuticle. It's basically their skin, and they can't develop to the next stage. Whereas Grandivo, the one from the hemlock tree, stops them from feeding. So they each have a different way they work. Yeah. Question.
We have a question from Carlos.
Okay. Okay.
So why did you decide to formulate, develop, and sell your products and not license them to bigger players?
Some of our products are licensed to bigger players. So in the big acre crops like corn and soybeans, we have a exclusive partner, and that is where they coat the seeds with our product. But in the specialty crops, the high value fruits, nuts, and vegetables, we went to ourselves because we couldn't find a partner that was going to create that demand and perform at the time, do that demand creation that was necessary. And these were very new, different products, and the chemical companies actually didn't know how to sell these products. And they're actually still not that good at doing that today too, actually. And so if you're a salesman, you have a chemical portfolio, it's really hard to understand how to sell a biological. It's a different sale. So we decided we had to set up our own sales force. Now, if you're a startup today, I don't think you could do that. It's too crowded, too expensive to set up your own sales force. And you can't have every little company setting up a sales team of 10 people in California. So there's a lot more partnering going on. And of course, the big companies now are realizing they have to get in here and are giving better terms and minimum volume requirements and upfront milestones and stuff to do deals with smaller companies now. Yeah. Question.
Can you talk a bit more about the IP protection in biologicals? Can you actually patent a bug?
We actually can. So all of our products are patented. So we patent the microorganism. You cannot patent something that's just sitting in nature. You have to do something to it. So if you take it out of soil and put it on a petri plate or in a little flask, that's doing something to it. And then you find something new about it, then that's patentable. So you have very robust. One of the things I did, I have about 500 patents to my name. One of the things that we did was be very, very strong on patents, because we created a moat around us, and pretty much that was really important in this industry because it's a very proprietary industry. And we're able to keep people out and imitating and finding another strain of bacteria that do the same thing or whatever. So that was really important to the strategy. Yeah. It was about $1 million a year in patent costs, but it was well worth it. Yeah. Question.
What's the role of education and the university? Because you are from the university system. So how has the university system helped you and hiring people? How is the university system delivering students who are able to take part in the
So we always would hire interns and then see how they worked out, and then hire them as full-time employees if they were good interns. But we had a difficult relationship with the land grant universities, the agricultural universities, because there's an infrastructure that was pretty much wed to chemicals, and they tested products a certain way. They would put our products into their chemical testing protocols and expect it to work like a chemical. And we're not always willing to change how they did it. So I often had to just go direct to grower and do it on farm ourselves. We do have that university data, but it was challenging to get them to recommend. And that's still true today, although it is changing. But it's still such true today that I'm doing an initiative with Western growers, all the big growers in California, to vet all the startups biologicals on big growers' farms, because California has restricted so many chemicals that the farmers are screaming for more products, but it takes so long to get them tested, 3 to 5 years to get vetted and recommended by the university system. Agriculture's moved on in 3 to 5 years. So the growers are clamoring for a faster way to test these products, so they're willing to do it themselves. Yeah.
One more from someone else.
Claire. Okay, I know Claire.
Are your sales all in the US? And if not, do you find regulatory issues to bring the active agents over borders?
So about 75% of the sales are in the US, but the fastest growing areas are outside the US. So that's a very important area of growth. It is international is the area of growth. And I would say Europe is very, very difficult, even though they have eliminated most chemicals. They're the hardest to get through. It costs several $1 millions to get through the regulatory process. So it takes years. And so once you get a product registered in Europe, it takes off because there's so little competition. Brazil has now become really good. It's the biggest market. So you can get products through Brazil better, and it is the biggest chemical pesticide market as well. So generally, with the exception of Europe, it's reasonable to get through in a reasonable period of time to get the products through internationally. Yeah.
You
Question.
used the word organic a lot. The other day at our hotel in San Francisco, they had a wine tasting bar. They were showcasing some wineries that use biodynamic. Is that like the new phrase? Is that
Biodynamic is a different set of standards than organic. There is organic and biodynamic. Some vineyards are both organic and biodynamic, but they actually have a different set of rules. The government rule, there are U.S. Department of Agriculture rules for organic food and farming that were set in 2003. So if you see the organic label in the store, it means something a lot, okay? And it means you can't use any synthetic chemicals, no genetically modified crops. And so the growers have fewer things. Biodynamic is its own set of rules that are a bit similar, but a bit different. Yeah, they're both. We qualify for both. Yeah, we qualify for both of those. Yeah, yeah. But 80% of our customers are growers who use who use chemicals because for the reasons I mentioned, that we're providing value. So it's not just the organic grower that we're focusing on. Yeah.
Yeah, you said Europe is very regulated, and that means their farmers should be suffering exactly like how some of the farmers, the university system or whatever system that you go through takes time for them to approve this. How are they surviving? And if they are very regulated, what about European farmers? Are there different mechanisms with which they are farming, which is very different to what is done here?
Well, farmers are protesting mightily by this, and because some of the changes have been fairly recent, I mean, it will be seen whether the yields drop or they move to more regenerative practices. And I think it's about a 3 to 5 year transition from intense chemical farming to more regenerative practices that use less chemical or go organic. So I think a lot of farmers are making that switch. And EU also has restricted chemical fertilizers as well. So, but they're giving some time. It's not till 2030, so they're giving some time. But a lot of the chemicals are already gone. And they're finding substitutes, and they're adapting their farming. And so far, I haven't heard that yields have been dropping that much. Yeah. So I think they are adapting. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
With respect to the things that we put in our soil with chemicals and all that stuff, where are we? Are we like ruined it 50%, 20%, or we have point of no return?
Well, as I said, 50% of our topsoil in the US is degraded. I think if we kept at our continued pace, 80-90% would be ruined within 15-20 years. So the US Department of Agriculture and many NGOs have a very high focus on soil health right now and are paying and giving farmers incentives to improve their soil health. So this is a big buzzword today. So they're changing their practices to enhance their soil health and getting payments for it. So that's what's happening now. Yeah.
So is that what's feeding the regenerative farming movement?
Yes. Yes.
No, I knew I had to follow the money somewhere.
Yes. So the big food companies are now paying farmers to change their practices to what's called regenerative, which means you regenerate the soil, and that improves plant growth. You don't need to use as many chemicals and so forth. Yeah. Yeah.
Round of applause for Pam. Big chestnuts, man. Big chestnuts. Okay. All right. Office hours, if you haven't signed up, you want to do it, it's going to be here starting at, I believe, 1:45.
Thank you.